Hi, you're on the Bible Forum. I'm Warren Sprouse. What's happening at home? We can talk about all the things that are going on around the world, but right here in the good old US of A, we've got things going on that ain't never gone on before, at least not in my time. The April Consumer Credit Report from the Federal Reserve was published just this week. It revealed the largest increase in revolving credit on record. People are borrowing money. I understand borrowing money to buy gas to put in your car. I have a 13-gallon tank. It takes $50 to fill it up. From a routine $10 to $20 billion, all the way up to $38 billion since the Biden administration took over. It's interesting that the Bush years reflected a minus debt of 10 to 25 billion. In the last year, the Trump administration saw a minus 60 billion. In my lifetime, which is very, very long, barring times of war or national crises, the debt limits have been relatively stable. In the 1990s, debt started to climb. It leveled out by the 20th century. But after the Bush years, it just took off. What it shows is the depletion of middle-class savings. Human nature? People will borrow money for almost anything when their jobs are stable and the economy's working and everything's going fine. Revolving credit explodes when governments are irresponsible or we go at war. In times of financial pressure, people are forced to borrow or just do without. And we're not a society that's used to doing without. Having had the money we needed, it's hard to adjust to that lower income or to that lower buying power. And this whole thing is very sneaky. We need stuff, but we don't have the cash. What do? We put it on the card. What we don't realize is that we're doing that more often, and younger people more than older. Eventually, we have several thousands of dollars of debt on several different cards. Then we don't have enough money to actually pay down that debt. It's a vicious cycle. But it's human nature under pressure. But when the government does it, the value of the dollar starts to go downhill. 2 more years, if we can hold on that long, and hopefully we'll have somebody in there that knows how to stabilize the economy. What can the government do to help with gas prices? Well, the simple answer here is to suspend gas taxes. We're in a crisis situation right here. Most people, if they have a job, can't afford the gas now. I got a 12, 13-gallon tank. I got friends that are running 25 and 30-gallon tanks. You fill that baby up, and that's a house payment. If you suspended the gas tax, it would put more money back in people's pockets. This is the sentiments of Senator Maggie Hassan from New Hampshire. She says, I'm pushing the administration to support that. Of course, they haven't yet, and that's frustrating, Hassan said. She and Democrat Senator Mark Kelly of Arizona have proposed a bill in February to suspend the federal gasoline tax when the average price at the pump tops $3.50 a gallon. I vote aye. The bill would have killed off the 18.4 cents a gallon tax for the rest of 2022. But our Commerce Secretary said there wasn't much anybody could do about the prices. Chief economist at something called Forward Bonds said that realistically, it'd be a miracle if we don't go into a recession. And the president has to at least try. I ask, what are the odds? Something called Natural News had an article this week. They say thanks to the Biden regime's destructive economic policies that have resulted in record inflation, the Isabella County Sheriff's Department in Michigan has announced that it no longer has the resources to respond to 911 calls because of fuel costs. How's that? The current gas price average in America is hovering around $5 a gallon, and it's going up. And it's slightly higher on average in Michigan. And so because of this, the Isabella County Sheriff's Department has already, what they say, blown through their fuel budget and will have to respond to some 911 calls over the phone rather than show up in person. A federal cut, a state cut, and gas comes back down to a manageable level. However, it's the gas taxes that feed the state and the federal budgets. And God forbid a state budget doesn't get all the money that it can. The message here, state legislators don't care about you. The individuals seem to care until they get into the place where they have to vote. And then all of a sudden, they see life a lot differently. NBC News. San Francisco voters fired their headline-grabbing reformist district attorney last Tuesday, according to NBC, after rising crime rates proved intolerable even for the famously progressive city, San Francisco. Chesa Boudin, son of left-wing radicals who was elected on a Black Lives Matter-aligned platform to reform the criminal justice system, faced a successful recall effort as voters grew frustrated with the perception that his office is not willing to do much about crime. The outcome in its lopsided margin was a rebuke to the left as Democrats retreated from calls to defund the police. What happened? Well, the national polls are showing a growing concern about public safety, especially from people of color. With more than 2/3 of the expected vote counted, votes to remove Boudin from office were outstripping those to keep him, 60.5 to 39.5%. This story and so many more, some that I've already recounted for you and some that we'll talk about a little bit later on, these are the kinds of things that are sweeping the country. We're in a situation that most people, if you're not at least 60 years old, you don't remember anything like this. And it's all brand new. And it's a little scary. But I grew up during and after World War II. And I got to tell you, people didn't spend a lot of money back in the 40s. In the 50s, the economy started to roll. We went to war again with North Korea. And, you know, wars tend to keep the money going. And people had jobs and that sort of thing. But there was a recession that came after that. I've forgotten what the years were. It was, I think, in the 70s somewhere. And people just didn't know what to do. And we've had it pretty good for most of your life. But I'm afraid it's going to get a lot worse. I'm afraid that most people today, I'd say people 50 years old and younger, don't know what it's like. And people 60 years and younger have only an inkling. Don't know the value of having money in the bank, having a credit card that isn't maxed out, one that you don't use unless you have to, having other financial options that you can call on. You have a house mortgage, you can refinance your house. Yeah, it's going to cost you. The interest rates are higher and the mortgage is going to go up. But at least you'd have $15,000 or $20,000 in the bank, and it might get you through this thing. It's not recommended. But those are the kinds of things that people are setting out to do. because the economy is just not what it's always been. And I say it is a lesson in reality. We've lived the last 50, 60 years in la-la land, where everything just sort of worked. We're now having to face what most people around the world live with every day, only not near as bad. It's a good time to wake up and grow up and take hard look at what you got and what you need and start putting some money away, even though you can't afford to do that. Find ways to get around it, or it's going to get a lot tougher. When we come back, I want to talk to you about enemies or friends. We're going to go to Russia. Stay tuned.